Welcome to the Women on the Rise podcast. I'm Jen Blandos, the founder of Female Fusion, and this is where we look at everything entrepreneurship for female entrepreneurs. Whether you are just getting started or you have a 7 or 8 figure business, we cover the topics that matter most to you as you are building, growing, and scaling your business. Welcome to another episode of the Women on the Rise podcast, and we are here in London talking to fabulous women in business. And today I'm joined by Viv Paxinos, who is the CEO of Albright here in London. Welcome to the podcast, Viv.
Thank you so much for having me, Jen. Can I call you Jen?
Of course you can call me Jen. Everybody calls me Jen. Do you know what? I only got called Jennifer when I was in trouble.
Me too. My parents call me Viviane when I'm in trouble, and everyone else calls me Viv.
Exactly, right? So we'll save that. We're not in trouble. So before we jump in, because I have so many questions, why don't you tell everybody a bit about you and what Albright does?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me first start with Albright. So Albright is the global network for women. So our mission is to remove all barriers for women in the workplace. And we do that through inspiring, connecting, and helping women upskill. We now reach close to 3 million women globally. We've got physical spaces here in London, and then we've got pop-ups and events around the world.
That's pretty cool. And that's how we met actually as well. Initially, probably almost a year ago now, we met in Dubai.
Exactly a year ago. Yes, that's right.
So we met in Dubai, and one of the things that we found, I mean, our missions are similar, but we don't compete against each other. And it's so much that, you know, we're all working towards the same thing as well. So that's why I'm so happy to have you here.
Oh, I'm happy to be here.
So tell everybody a bit about your background. You're the CEO of Albright. What brought you there?
So I had a completely different industry background. So I moved, I've had a background about 20 years in London in media owner side, so advertising, running commercial teams and running marketing teams. So I worked for some of the biggest companies like the BBC, Viacom for MTV. I worked for A&E Networks and Discovery, Warner as well. Worked on the Olympic partnerships. And then I wanted a career pivot, and I wanted to work for a company that was tech at the heart. And I went over to run a company called Unidays, which is a marketplace for Gen Z. And I had my second baby during COVID, and I went back to work about 3 weeks later. We were all home, so I figured, why not work? And I don't recommend doing that. It was in hindsight. By the time it got to December, I was completely burnt out and exhausted, and decided I just needed to take time off work and wanted to do something different. And so I took the time to reflect on what was important to me. I found one common thread was always, I had this amazing peer group of women and friends, and I'd always support them, negotiating roles, going after roles, getting their bonuses. And at the time, I knew one of the founders of Albright and was spending some time with her. So she asked me to jump ship and join Albright, which I did. And I joined as CEO for the business. And within just a few weeks, actually, was asked by the board to step up into the CEO role, which I celebrated a year last week.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And so how have you found that? Is this your first CEO role as well?
It is, yes.
How have you found that?
I found it challenging, satisfying. I love it. I love everything I do. I have to say that everything that I did in working for large corporates before that was I took so much out of that, and I learned like the resilience. I learned how to pivot. I learned how to put together business plans and strategies. So I'm so grateful that I've had that experience, and sometimes, and now I've gone to a startup. So sometimes we think that startup environment is only reserved for female founders, but you can have that entrepreneurial mindset when you work for big corporate. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I always did. And then I was able to marry the best of what I learned from a large organization and bring into a small organization. Things that you think about more now is, it's not just your profit margin, but you're thinking of the financial structure of the company. You're thinking about your investors, your cap table. You're thinking about, I was fundraising as well. So there's just so much more to think about. I have to say it's taken me a good year to feel really confident and at ease with the role. Not because, the best part, as we were just discussing, is the community, the members, and getting to know our community, which is the best. And it was the operational side of the business that took a little bit longer.
But I think it's like that for any business owner as well, that doing the other stuff in your business, that's kind of the fun stuff a lot of times as well, right? But it's the operations that we need to get solid as well, and to really understand that. Have you ever fundraised before? Like, is this your first time?
I've never fundraised before. I've always worked for large companies that were really well funded.
Yeah.
And even just putting together an investment deck and getting that past the board, and speaking to investors, so all of that was quite new. And it's the hard bits, right? And it's, there's times where I was just, gosh, I don't know, this is really hard. And you get through it, and you have to just this is where resilience plays an important role. But the greatest lesson for me has been that, the ability to be able to pivot, and we all can. And there's so much you can take from your previous experience to apply to whatever you want to do.
Mm. And let's talk about some of the work that Albright's doing, because you're doing some fantastic work, especially in the UK as well, for women, all women, especially a lot for women in the workplace as well. What are some of the big initiatives that you're working on right
Absolutely.
now?
So I'm really proud of one of our product launches earlier this year called Alliance. Mm-hmm. So Alliance is a framework that supports organizations to really drive success. So it starts with a data and needs analysis. So we use something called a culture decoder to understand how people are feeling about culture in the workplace. And then we take that data and analyze it, and then make a recommendation to a business around how to improve against certain criteria. And then we implement that recommendation through coaching programs, learning programs, mentoring programs. And there's data checkpoints throughout the year. And then at the end of it, it's a 2-year journey, but at the end of the year, they become an Alliance certified member. That really signifies that they're supporting women in the workplace. So we launched that in Feb, and we have 12 partners. And collectively, the partners represent 288,000 employees.
Wow.
Yeah, 188,000 women. And we've helped reduce the gender pay gap by 2%. We've helped increase retention rates by double digits. We've also been nominated for awards, and we're just completing a program with Google. So, I've been so proud of that, because it's really around, just driving that success in the workplace and making sure that we're marrying people needs with business performance needs. And I think that's really important.
But so often as well, like the statistics show that having, a more diverse workforce, having, parity in pay is good it makes good business sense, yet still it's not happening. And I don't know if you feel this, that when I speak with friends, because being in the space that we're in, we have a lot of friends who are doing the same things. And I remember I was having dinner with a friend who is a VC focused on funding women-owned businesses. And we were like, this is so hard. This is so hard. And you constantly get criticism as well. And you'll have people say, oh, well, why, should we do this for women? And she had just been at a meeting and had someone come up to her and go, well, I just fund male-owned businesses. And, and we were sitting there going, it's so hard, but you're also making change. And hopefully that when our daughters are our age, that it's not going to be as hard, that people are going to be much more conscious of that and go, well, but that's not right. Why should women make less than men? Why should women have less funding than men?
100%. When it comes to VC funding, we need to make sure we're having women on each side of the table.
Yeah.
So more women making the decisions in terms of where the money is being invested in. And then we just need to increase the funding that goes to it. And we have the data that supports it. When you look at how well female-run businesses perform versus men, they outperform them by 15%.
Yet they're still not getting the funding.
No. And when you look at, just the economy and the macroeconomic challenges we're facing, how do you plug that gap? Is just invest in women.
Yeah.
Right? If women were funding businesses, were running businesses at the same rate of men, we'd add 1.3 billion into the economy, right? So, and when it comes to the workplace, we get a lot of that. When I speak to a lot of influential CEOs, They say, well, we don't want to alienate the men. And I just say, it's not about that. It's not women or men, right?
Yeah.
It's about, first you start, I think if I go back to your first point, every company, whether you're an entrepreneur or whether you're a big corporate, every company wants growth. Growth comes from innovation, and innovation comes from diversity of thought, right? And that comes from diversity of generations, diversity of genders. So it's a really simple, argument, isn't it? Right?
Yeah.
Do you want to drive growth, then you need diversity, and that's it. So you've got to start there, and you've got to make those commitments at every level of the organization. We're either seeing too much focus on the top, not enough middle managers, and so we're seeing quite high attrition rate for women in their 30s. Because when you look at the gender pay gap, it's pretty even in the 20s, right?
Yeah.
It's just, and then you see it starts to widen in the 30 when women are in their 30s, and then they never catch up.
Yeah. And it's because, there's a number of reasons for it as well, but a lot of times it's because women take time off. Take time off.
Yeah.
And they need to have that flexibility. Yeah, I wish companies would be much more open-minded to that because, and it's great. Like, what have you seen? So the 25 companies that you have so far, what have they seen any tangible results so far that they're really buying into it and almost like telling their other friends, so they're beating down your door and going, sign us up?
Yeah, I mean, what I see in companies is there's a bit of apathy to invest in supporting, gender-specific programs.
Okay.
And that's because, perhaps when the trading climate is more challenging.
Yeah.
And when there's, inflation, interest rates rising, you do what you know best, and you hire people that look like you, people that you trust, and you don't invest in people as much, right?
Yeah.
And it's hard for some leaders to, and it's not even taking a risk, but just to do something differently when times are difficult economically everywhere, not just in the UK but everywhere. For partners that have been investing in part of the Alliance program, we have seen them reduce the gender pay gap. We have seen them promote more women. So they've reduced the gender pay gap through promoting more women through our programs, because we're teaching them how to negotiate, but we're also teaching them that mindset, that confidence.
Yeah.
Right. The Google program is a returners program. So we're supporting women returning back to work and returning with that confidence, but also the agility and that mindset that they could do anything they want to do, right? And that plays such a big role. We're seeing an increase of retention rate in double digits at the moment, so mid-teens, which is really, and it's still
significant.
It's only 6 months, right?
Yeah.
So
Wow.
those are some of the impact data that we're seeing at the moment.
Wow. But even just within the matter of 6 months, 2%.
It's massive
That's
compared
massive,
to
right?
the UK. I mean, I think the UK gender pay gap has been reduced by like 0.2% in the last 6 years or something like that.
But I think also as well, things fell back a bit in the pandemic as well, didn't they?
Yeah.
That we saw that for investment and funding, but also as well for pay for women in businesses.
Right. Yeah. Because women tend to have more of the lower paying jobs. More women didn't go back to work post-pandemic. So we've got to catch up now, and it's tricky. When women take time off to have children, if they wish to have children, for the first 10 years after they come back, they earn 60% less than men. So they never catch up to close that pay gap.
It's just
I know.
hurts your heart in a way, doesn't it?
And that's why what we do is so important. So when times get tough and I'm like, gosh, this is really difficult, I remind myself that it's just so much bigger, right?
Yeah.
And it is for that next generation. And, I have my grandmother who's Spartan. She said to me, don't complain, don't complain about work. I was not even able to work. and so she keeps reminding me, keep doing what you're doing. Don't complain.
Yeah.
You've got so much opportunity now
But
that she didn't have.
Which is amazing, right?
Yeah.
And it's amazing to see how much has changed, but then also as well to look at it and go, but
It still hasn't changed enough.
it hasn't changed enough.
Yeah.
And
I think it will change. I've been reading quite a bit of the history of sustainability in the workplace and how long that took to implement. And it took a long time, right? It was in the early 2000s when the UN published a study around sustainability and the importance of sustainability. And it's taken a good 20 years to embed that in the workplace as something that's default rather than a nice to have.
When it's just changing people's mindsets
It is,
as
yeah.
well. Because I find too with this generation, and I see this even with my kids. I've got a 14 and a 19-year-old, that the way that the kids this generation think are completely different than our generation. And I love that they're so into kind of like equality and kindness. And, you know, I have conversations with my daughter and she's like, but why are women getting paid less? She's like, that's so stupid. Why? It
They
doesn't
don't
make
understand.
sense.
It's an issue. To them, it's not an
Right?
issue.
Yeah.
All genders, they don't, you know, they don't connect with the issues that, you know, we're facing.
Yeah. Which is why I hope that when my daughter is my age, that she's going to be like, can you believe, like, when my mum was my age, that like they had to fight to get like equal pay or same level of investment.
And I'm a mum of 2 boys, so something that I think about a lot is how do you raise boys with, you know, a lot of empathy,
Yes.
vulnerability, and how do you know, masculinity has been defined in a certain way.
Yeah.
And it's almost how do you help, you know, and we have a leadership program which is just launching next week, which is men and women, which is the first time we've done
that's
that.
nice.
So it's all genders, because we feel, you know, I believe that future leadership is feminine, and that could be, those feminine qualities are not about gender in a way. So it's around vulnerabilities, about compassion, empathy, collaboration. So how do we unteach what they've been taught, right? And really make sure that we embed those values in our future leaders.
And I love to, you know, because I've had people come up to me, and I'm sure you've had this too, where people are like, so are you against guys? And I'm like, no, you know, like not at all. And I'm finding it so important as well to bring men along to support everything that we're doing, because we're only 50% of the population, and we need men to support it and buy into it and champion everything that we're doing as well.
Oh, absolutely. And we always start looking at it from what can we do to make society and businesses the best they can be, right? How do we optimize them for greatness? And then what does that look like for different populations within the workforce? Women and men have different lived experiences. So you can't pretend that that's not the case. It is the case, right? Just as someone of color would have a different experience than me, right? And it's just recognizing that there are some differences, and how do we support women in the workplace? But then on the flip side is, what are the values that unite us, and what are the priorities that unite us? And that's why our leadership redefined program is around what unites us as leaders, and what are the values that have to be consistent across all leadership.
That sounds really nice. And have you had many guys sign up for the program then?
We haven't launched it yet.
Oh, so next week is
next week.
Okay.
Announcing it. Yeah.
So I would. How long is the program for?
It's 12 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to have a follow up, because I'm really interested just to hear how that works, bringing men and women.
But I do
together.
get, to what you say, I do get, I was at an event not too long ago, and I had someone ask me what I did, a man, and I told him, and he said, oh, that's total BS. Like, why do we, and you do get that. And then I listen.
Yeah.
And I want to understand where are you coming from?
Yeah.
Like, what's happened in your life to feel that way?
Yeah. Yeah.
Where it's so easy to get angry. And I said, well, tell me why you think that. Right?
Yeah. And that's it, that I like you as well, that there's no point getting angry, that we need as many guys as champions as possible. I had that as well when I was in America earlier this year, that some guy told me the same thing, that it was terrible what I was doing. And I was like, okay, you know, why?
Right, absolutely.
And I think probably because there is the feeling that some people think, well, you know, you're anti-guy, and you're saying that I can't get funding, or, you know, you need to hire a woman over me. And, you know, even for things like procurement and how companies hand out contracts, a lot of times women are getting 1% to 2% of that as well. And you speak with people in procurement, and a lot of times they don't even know this, but how they find companies a lot of time is through their networks.
Yes.
And if you're a guy, most often your friends are guys.
Of course, that's what you...
And so you're not consciously eliminating people, but you're kind of like, oh, well, you know, this department needs this person. Okay, who do I know I'm going to ask and have, you know, the 5 companies put in proposals. But then if all those 5 companies are guys and they're white, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. You hire who you know.
Yeah.
Right? That's what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's just expanding that network as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you wrote an article, which I thought was really interesting, talking about when people are being laid off and the resilience that you need when you've been laid off. And I was reading your article and I thought, these are all the skills that an entrepreneur needs. Does that mean that we've all been laid off? But it is kind of like all of those ranges of emotions when you're running your own business as well. Do you want to
expand on that?
Expand on
Yes,
that.
I have to remember what I wrote. But
do you want me? I wrote notes if you want.
It's
as
interesting because when I look at the trend at Albright, when I look at the number of entrepreneurs we had pre and post COVID and increased post COVID. So I'm not saying they were laid off, but they could have decided, well, actually, I'm doing something differently, right? And those are the qualities I think. I think there were 4 or 5 that I mentioned. I usually do things in 5, but
it's 5. So shall I? Okay. So embrace the power of positivity. Network. Don't be afraid to pivot. Self-care is non-negotiable, and upskill yourself.
Yes. Okay. So should we talk through them?
So let's talk about positivity.
Yes. So I strongly believe like mindset is so important, and you have a choice of how you react to things. I have someone close to me at the moment who's being made redundant. I'm like, that's amazing. You've been there for 15 years. What a great opportunity to do something different. They looked at me like I was crazy. I was like, no, it is amazing.
It is.
Now, I have to say, you have to couple mindset or manifestation with action. So you can't just have the mindset.
What, you can't manifest a new job?
You have to have action, right?
Yes.
And I was talking about that with the team this morning, because you can manifest and you have mindset, but then you have to make sure you've got the discipline to do what you're supposed to do, right? And I think that's really important because there's so much talk about positive mindset, which I think is so key. But we need to have more talk about actually discipline, and making sure that we do what we're supposed to be doing to then make that positive outcome happen, right?
Yeah. I mean, nobody's going to change it for you, right? You're going to have to take care of it yourself.
But I work on my mindset all the time, and positivity is key, and just always looking at things from a different perspective. And I'm sure we'll go on and talk about it a lot, but I just believe in living in the flow of life and not trying to fight against it. So this has happened to you, there must be a reason. And I always think we are exactly where we need to be at the right moment. And if we kind of find solace in that and then figure out how to go from there, you'll end up somewhere great.
That's some pretty good wisdom there. And it's funny that it takes us a long time to figure that out.
Do you know how I figured out something not to do with work, but I'll give the example. So I had my first child, and then my second one I really struggled with, and we had to do 5 rounds of IVF. And then I remember standing in front of the clinic and thinking, I just cannot do another round. So I thought, that's it, I'm done. And I gave all the baby clothes away and all of that. And I was like, I'm just going to be happy with 1 child. You know, as a Greek woman, you never have 1 child. You have like 4, right?
Yeah.
I have to have a second child. I was obsessed with it. And then like 4 or 5 months later, I got pregnant naturally.
Wow.
So it's giving into where you are, right?
Yeah.
And not being so obsessed with, how am I going to, and then just giving into it and then just letting go. And that's a great example for me. It was such a wake up moment of living more in the flow of life as opposed to just fighting against it and having something like that consumed like everything I was thinking about.
It's so wise because I think when you do that as well, you relax more. And you're more open to seeing opportunities that maybe present themselves.
It's that abundance mindset,
And it's so important. I wish like skills like these were taught to kids, even at school. Like these are such important skills. Like you were saying, you lose your job.
Yeah.
What a gift, right? Like you weren't happy in your job or something like that. Look at what you could do with that. Do you want to change your career? Do you want to work for a different company? Do you want to set up a business? It's a gift. The universe is giving you a gift.
It is. And someone asked me, I was on a podcast a couple of weeks ago, and they said, what are the most important skills I think my children need to have in the future? Because the jobs they have are going to look completely different. And I answered agility, resilience, and empathy. Right, it's just, and that's the resilience to get through whatever life throws at you, and the agility, being able to move with life, is just so important.
But those are skills that people aren't taught.
No,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and you kind of learn them as you go through life. I think
it's the smarts and the emotion that have to go together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think I really got the hang of that until I was in my early 40s, probably, because I spent so long kind of like, what's next? What's next? How can I control it?
Me too.
And
How do I move up? How do I move up? How do I get the next role?
Get there faster. I want to be there as fast as possible. I want to be a VP at this level, or, make this
I
much
was the same.
Yeah. I was like, when I was 27, I made VP. And I was like, I'm the youngest VP ever. It's thought so. I was so proud of that. And then I was like, why? Why are you? And I'm I'm almost 50 now, and I'm looking at it going, I don't want to be a grown-up anymore. Why did I push so hard and want to do everything so fast? Because it is hard.
I think life sends you signals. So if you listen and you're in tune with yourself, you just listen, right?
Yeah.
What's the second one?
So second one is networking.
Yes. So that is the single most important thing for anyone listening you can do for your career is network. I cannot say it enough. And your business, career, business, I look at that as one, right? It's the most important thing you can do for your business, because every role, even this one, everything I've done has been because of my network.
Yeah.
And people just remember and network with the view of building relationships and not transactions.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important. And some people don't like to network. And if you put that pressure that it's to make a business contact, then you put that, that expectation on yourself. But if it is to just go and meet somebody and find a way to connect, because we all connect with each other one way or another.
Of course.
So if you find that common way to connect, network.
Yeah.
I mean, you just need to make the time. I mean, fundraising, if you need accountants, finance, all of that, you just need to use your network as much as possible.
And what I say to people as well, no matter how busy you are, you always have to make time.
Yeah. Because
that is one of the things that's going to make a biggest shift for you in your life.
Absolutely. I went to an event a little while back. It was a friend of mine. He's quite senior in the advertising industry. He said, come along. And I thought, I don't have time, but I'll go. I was quite keen to see what it was like. He's been talking to me about it for a while. And it was a really great event, lots of senior people and from a brand point of view and the advertising community. And then when he asked me for feedback, I said, it was great, but you just had too many men and not enough women. It was like 75-25. And he said, Viv, I start the invite list with 75% women, 25% men, but the women tend to drop off and I get more men showing up. And it's the time, because we've got, other responsibilities, whether we're caring for children, caring for others, or we take so much on and we don't make the time to network.
Yeah.
So to me, it's just so important to really make the time to network.
Yeah, no, I find that
the best
so
things
important.
in your career and your business will happen because of your network.
Don't you find, though, just on an aside, that I love going to networking events, sometimes that aren't mine, because I don't have to do anything? Isn't that refreshing?
It's so nice. I went to a couple last week where I didn't even have to host. I was just there. I was like part of mingling, and I loved it. Oh, and then sometimes when the panel's speaking, I want to just jump in and say something, and I have to hold back.
You're like, I'm just here to relax and network.
And just listen and absorb what's happening around me. Yeah.
No, that's one of my favorites as well. I was at an event a couple of weeks ago, and a lot of our members were at this event, and I thought, this is so nice that I don't have a microphone in my hand and that I don't have to be up on stage and I'm not on any schedule. I can just talk, relax. Next thing is pivoting.
Yeah, pivoting. I mean, I pivoted twice. I went from media owner to an e-commerce marketplace. That's one pivot. And then from that to a startup. And it's great. Like, our careers are not linear.
Yeah.
And there's Squiggly, right? There's a really great book, a podcast called Squiggly Careers, and embrace that as well. Yeah. And don't be afraid. There's always lessons you take from the experience you've had, and you can apply it going forward. So I think it's really, they say you have about 5 different careers and in a lifetime, and really embrace that and enjoy that and do things differently.
And it is cool that we can do that. Like 30, 40 years ago, that wasn't possible. Mm-hmm. That our parents' generation, they'd look at it and be like, well, this is your career. You're an accountant. You be an accountant for your life. And I think it's cool even when I meet accountants who have been accountants and they're like, I've set up a shop, or I'm a fashion designer now, or I've set up like an e-commerce store. Like,
I think
cool.
in life we have to constantly think about our brand and how we're reinventing it and keeping it relevant.
Well, it's the personal brand as well.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
The personal brand is so important. And the only person, if you don't build your personal brand, then others will build it for you. So take control of that and use it to pivot. And if you're interested in another area, then start to build a personal brand around those interests.
Yeah. And I see with business owners and also women who are in corporates as well, a lot of times feel like, oh, no, I don't want to be seen. I'm going to hide behind my business, or I'm going to hide behind my company. I'll do the company stuff. But having your personal brand is so important.
It's so important.
That's like that's an asset.
But also when you look at great brands, they have a personal touch to them. And so you need to have your own personal brand to create a connection with your customers, your network, all of that. And again, if you don't build it, then others will brand you or make an assumption of who you are. So be in control of your own narrative.
Yeah.
I mean, we all have a narrative, and when we step forward and we connect with that narrative, then we're more authentic as leaders.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more with you on that. Now, another one is upskilling yourself.
Yeah.
I love this one because there's so much to learn.
Always, yeah. And that's a big part of what we do at Albright. So we've got, a wealth of data and a breadth of upskilling opportunities, because you always have to constantly be learning, right? And I think that's, again, whether, we did something around Web3 and NFTs. Now, whether you're interested or not in getting into this space, understanding it is really important. And what I say often is, a knowledge gap becomes a power gap and becomes a wealth gap. Yeah. Right. So if we want to make sure that we're closing the gap and we're closing the wealth gap and the gender pay gap, you have to be in those sectors where women are not as represented, and you have to be leaning in and learning.
Yeah. And constantly learning. And again, I hate this when I hear women say to me, oh, I don't have time. So I make a point that I spend at least 5 hours a month learning something new.
Agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's when you're running a business, you need to know everything.
Absolutely. I mean, I've kind of have done a deep dive in AI at the moment, and I love it.
Yeah.
I use ChatGPT every day. It's great, right? And there's efficiencies and understanding how everyone out there can use it to make themselves a more valuable member of the team, or more valuable business owner, more efficient, is such an incredible opportunity. It's going to be such a big innovation of our time.
Have you found that many of Albright's members have been embracing it as well, or do you see that there's still some women who are fearful?
We've been running a workshop. So it's a 6-week workshop around how to use AI to navigate business and drive innovation. We have about 150 women dialing in for it. So it's
That's cool.
Pretty impressive.
That's good.
Pretty impressive.
Nice. Yeah. And then the last one that you had was self-care. Yes. It's non-negotiable.
It's, whatever that means to you. And mine goes up in waves. There are times where I'm really great at self-care, and there are times where I'm just really bad. I was going to swear, but I'm not going to swear. Where I'm really bad at it, but it's whatever, however you fill your cup. And this was really and for a lot of my friends work in media, and they were made redundant, right? And when I mean self-care is, don't spend the whole day looking for work.
Yeah.
Spend 2 hours, look for work, and then do something for yourself.
Yeah.
Take care of you, because work is going to follow, right? It's impossible that the notion that you're never going to work again. It's going to come. So take 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever you feel comfortable with, and then do something else for yourself. You're just going to be so much better for it.
Yeah. Well, then it's going to make it easier for you to find a job as well, because if you're constantly stressed and worried, that's going to reflect when you're looking for that role as well.
Exactly.
You almost come across as desperate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which impacts your negotiation power. That's right. On the self-care as well, I wanted to talk to you too about, so we saw each other in the summer, and you were glowing when I saw you. You were just like, hi, I feel so great. You had been away on a retreat for the weekend. Was it weekend or was
It was a weekend.
It was a
yeah.
weekend, and just completely re-energized. And I'd love to chat about that because, again, this is one thing that I hear from women in corporates and also who are entrepreneurs. Oh, I don't have time for that. Or, why would I spend money on that? But you found that that was quite revolutionary for you,
It was the
right?
best. It was with the very inspiring Mo Gadatz, who I absolutely love, and I've read his books, and I just saw it pop up in my Instagram feed. And good marketing tactic is like 4 more rooms available, and I just booked it. And I knew that July was going to be a really busy month for me, so I booked it in advance, and I booked it to prevent burnout because I'm just always all in, right? It's just the way I am, and I wanted to take a step back and reflect and learn. And it's interesting because I went to the retreat intentionally being a bit of a loner and quiet. And it was something that I didn't want to be my usual self because I spend so much time, as you do, networking, leading events, leading a team, have my kids, and you're just energizing others. I almost retreated, right? I was the opposite.
And are you an introvert or an extrovert? Like, are you mainly extroverted?
I'm mainly extroverted.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because I don't know if you find this, I'm very extroverted, but it gets to a point, like if you've been doing so many events or so many interviews that you get to a point where you're like, I love people, but I don't want to talk to anybody for 24 hours.
And that's why I did the retreat. I didn't want to speak to anyone for 48 hours. So I took notes, I was smiling. And then, of course, after, halfway through, I went to speak to Mo, and he's like, oh, you're so quiet, and who are you? And all that. I was like, oh, I'm usually not, but this is why I did this. And I got to spend some time with him. But the reason why I love the retreat is it gave me the tools of how to deal with stress. And it was just a good reminder of, signs, things to look out for. There were things also like silent walks, which I really enjoyed, some meditation. And it's just good for me to connect with your thoughts. I feel when I get really, really busy and just everything, I can't feel what's in my gut, like what's the right thing to do? What am I thinking? And, and I need to connect with myself. And when I lose that connection and that balance, which is not work-life balance, but when I lose like that touch with myself, I have to do something. And I knew I was getting to that point, and it had been about 6 months into my role. I thought I need to take some time and just reset.
And do you feel as well that when you make decisions, I found the older that I get, it's more based on intuition. Do you find?
Yeah, it was interesting because when I took on the role as CEO, I questioned, not publicly, my decisions a bit, right? Am I doing the right thing? I didn't want to make a mistake and all of that. And then I had to give in. I just thought, gosh, you make the decisions we make are with the information we have at hand at that time. And so you're doing what you think is right. And not everything is going to be right, but you're doing what you think is right. And I do use a lot of data, and I make sure that when we're developing new products, are we testing them with our users? Yeah. We're making some changes to our membership now. And I said, have we tested it with our members? Right?
Don't just give them something that they don't want.
Yeah. Like let's build the business with our members and our community.
Yeah.
So I do ask for that data quite often, and then I do what I think is right. If it feels really wrong, I say no right away.
Yeah.
If it feels I'm not sure, then I just ask for can I get some more information? And that's okay. And I've learned not to say yes right away. So there was a decision my team was waiting on for me for about 2 weeks. And they said, okay, it's decision time today. And I took the last 2 weeks just to think about it, think about the day, and not having to give an answer straight away. Because it was one that I was sitting on the fence, and there was a reason why. So I needed to do a bit of understanding the data, understanding the members, understanding my team, and then I came to the decision. Okay, we're going to pivot this way.
Okay.
And I think I've gone better over the last year in making decisions and more confident and not putting the pressure that I'm going to get it all right. And sometimes I don't.
But we put so much pressure on ourselves. I think, every one of my friends who are very senior in corporate roles or in business, we just put this pressure. And I don't know if guys do the same that, we're just so high achieving that, there's the pressure that I want to make the right decision, or even doubting ourselves sometimes. And I don't think guys do it as much as we do.
I don't, and perhaps are not as apologetic. So I think remembering that, when you do decisions, I always think about, am I making the best decision for the business, ethically, right?
Yeah.
Am I making the best decision for the people around me? Am I treating them well? And I think if you can look at yourself in the mirror and say, I did the best I could with the information I had at hand, and then you move on, right?
Sounds like, I was just thinking, it sounds like being a parent as well.
Yeah. So Mo taught me this, and it's very simple. At the retreat we went, and he said, okay, when a thought comes in, because we're not our brain, right? When a thought comes in from your mind, and it's one, acknowledge, is this thought true? If it's not true, because our mind is made to protect us, right? So it'll send negative messages to protect so we can retreat. So is that thought true? Okay, no, it's not. Then mind, take that away, send me another thought. If it is true, then can I do something about it? If I can, what can I do? If I can't, then okay, acknowledge it and move on.
Yeah.
So that's how I try to make those decisions.
It's such a powerful thing to learn, but it takes a long time to get confident with that as well.
Yeah.
I want to talk about founders for a few minutes, because you have a lot of corporate members, but you do have
many founders
as well.
Yeah.
You had a pitch day earlier this year where you connected investors with some of your entrepreneurs. How did that go?
Yeah, it goes really well. So we've been doing Pitch Day for years now, and Pitch Day is where we support women to get their pitch to where it needs to be. So there's a lot of prep that goes into it, and then we bring in VCs or high net worth individual, and we usually have some sponsors involved or brands, and then we get the entrepreneurs to pitch their ideas to a room full of potential investors. And it's one of the best mornings ever, because it's so inspiring. They're so passionate, and it's great to see. It's also great to see the trends. What are they thinking about, and so on. So they always do well. And I always say to the female founders, it's just a great way, like a great marketing tool, right? It's just a great experience for you. We also have our female founders catch up once a month, and that it's just a brand of its own. And and the vision for that was to create a network similar, to what you do, where founders can support and lean on each other.
Yeah,
and it's just a thriving community at Albright.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And you have really beautiful facilities as well. So unlike us, we don't have a clubhouse, but you have a really beautiful clubhouse as well.
You have to do one of your events at ours.
Yes, we do. We will. We're definitely going to be doing an event there as well.
But we're all, for us, and for me as a leader, it's all around collaboration, right? And how do we support more women to connect with their full potential, whether you're an entrepreneur or working for a large corporate, right? We want to make sure that we're supporting women across all stages of their career. And I feel that's what's really unique about Albright. It's really about, it's with you, whether you're a female founder, whether you're a mid-level manager, or whether you're a C-suite board level. And that's really important to us. And our digital platform as well, the vision for that is to democratize that access to networking and learning and connections, right?
Yeah. I mean, everybody should have a seat at the table. And what I like as well is saying that people who are just at the start of their careers, at the start of their business, when you connect with women who are much more experienced, that they kind of help support each other and lift each other up. But then also as well, some of the younger generation has so much that they can teach us as well.
Yeah, we talk a lot about reciprocal mentoring. Yeah. So learning from, helping each other out.
Yeah. I heard a really great story from one of our members the other day that she was saying to me, she's like, oh yeah, I've been angel investing in some of the businesses in Female Fusion. I was like, I didn't even know that. And I felt so proud just to hear that, those connections, that from that they're helping each other out and investing in each other's
You should
businesses.
start a fund.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's something that did cross my mind as well.
Yeah, and I love that. And, I think it's so important. Something we talk about and is women in wealth. And by wealth, I mean managing your finances, managing your investments, managing your pension, not being afraid to learn about investing and investing in other businesses, right?
But nobody teaches us how to do that.
No.
And that's also one thing as well that I've been talking about with some of our members is what can we do to work on wealth building and help women understand how to build wealth because
money matters, right?
Yes.
And it's there's nothing wrong with being open and discussing money, and that's okay, right? And understanding how your pension, your investing, how that could work, and angel, and that's great to hear members are investing in some of the female fusion businesses. You want more of that?
Yeah, isn't that cool?
It's so cool. I love that.
Yeah, we definitely need to encourage more of that.
Yeah.
So, what things do you have coming up in Albright?
Oh, we've got so many. So on the brand front, we're really excited. We've got a new brand campaign coming out, a new tagline coming out, propositions. So we're launching all of that in October. A new website,
fantastic,
which is really, really exciting. We have a new leadership series coming up in November, which we're really excited about, called Lead On, focusing on innovation, sustainability, wealth. And that's coming up in a few months. We've got our Step Forward conference that comes up for International Women's Day.
Oh, great. In March.
March, yes. Okay. Which we had our inaugural one this year. It was a huge success. So we're doing that again.
I think you need a bigger venue next year.
We were it was so great. That was the first decision I took, and I was terrified. I was like, what if all goes wrong? And if no one comes, and I've committed to spending money? And the team, kudos to my team. They're like, we're going to do it. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
It was a majority, and they're like, no, we should do it.
Yeah.
We believe in this. It's going to work. And I'm like, are you sure? Because we hired out the design museum. So it wasn't at Albright, but that's part of making the brand more accessible, is taking it to other locations. And the team was like, it's going to work. We're going to do it. I'm like, okay, let's just go for it. So I remember signing off the deposit for it. I was like, oh my God, I hope at least I break even.
Yeah.
But it was, profitable event, and it was a great day, and it was probably one of the highlights.
Oh.
And so we've got more of those coming up. We've got some events in the US next month. Nice. Which is really exciting as well. So we've got really still focusing on, the things we do best, which is, and honing in on that, is supporting women across all stages of their careers.
Amazing. Well, I look forward to hearing more, working more with Albright and seeing what's going to happen in the future for the business.
Okay, thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you.
Thanks for being part of this week's episode of Women on the Rise. Now, I want to tell you about something that I put together for you. It's Female Fusion's Tech Deck. And in our Tech Deck is all of the tools and resources that we use to run and automate Female Fusion. Now, we put it together for you with lots of handy links because time is money, right? And the more tech and automations that we can use in our business is going to help us have more time to work on the things that we want to do. So we're focusing on running our business rather than working on our business. All you need to do is head on over to the show notes, and I've included the link